In the heart of the ancient world, where east meets west, a city arose like a jewel sparkling above the water. Constantinople, built by Emperor Constantine I in 330 AD and made the capital of the Byzantine Empire, and thanks to its location on the Bosphorus Strait, controlled the trade routes between Asia and Europe, earning the title Queen of Cities. It was surrounded by towering walls, 3 successive layers of walls, deep water-filled moats, and formidable towers. It was said that its walls were impregnable. Since the era of the Umayyads, Muslims tried to reach it, driven by the dream of the prophets, peace be upon him, prophecy. You will conquer Constantinople. What a wonderful leader its leader will be, and what a wonderful army that army will be. Army after army clashed with its fortresses, and their ships were burned by Greek fire. As the centuries passed, the power of the Byzantine Empire waned and the city's population shrank. Yet it remained proud, as if defying history itself, until a new dawn appeared that would change everything. In the spring of 1453, crescent banners rose above the green plains overlooking the walls of Constantinople. The young Sultan Mehmed the Conqueror was not yet 19 years old, but he carried a dream greater than his age, a dream of conquering the city that had resisted kings and emperors for centuries. Mehmed ordered the construction of the Rumeli fortress to lay siege on the European side of the Bosphorus, to cut off the supply line to Constantinople. And while the fortress was completed in record time, waves of soldiers kept arriving until their numbers reached about 80,000 fighters, led by the Janissary cavalry and artillery, the likes of which history had never seen before. At the heart of the camp, the Hungarian engineer Urban was overseeing the construction of the giant cannon. The Shahi cannon, which weighed 18 tons, could hurl stones as large as boulders, capable of shaking walls that had stood for 1,000 years. Hundreds of oxen and wooden carts hauled the cannon's pieces over rough roads, while dust rose as if the earth itself was trembling in awe of what was coming. But the most cunning of the conqueror's plans came with the daring nighttime operation. 70 Ottoman ships were transported over land to the waters of the Golden Horn. The planks were coated with oils and grease, and under the cover of darkness, the ships slid on wooden wheels across the hills, until at dawn, the people of the city were stunned to see Ottoman sails sailing behind their walls. Inside Constantinople, Emperor Constantine XI was gathering what remained of the 7,000 Byzantine soldiers and enlisting the help of Italian mercenaries led by Giustiniani. Prayers were held in Hagia Sophia, and supplications for salvation rose up. But in their hearts, they knew the storm was approaching, under a sky heavy with the dust of camps and smoke. Torches, the conqueror and his soldiers were preparing for the siege that would change the course of history. In the heavy dawn upon the walls of Constantinople, the earth trembled beneath the roar of the great Shahi cannon. The giant projectiles shattered the stones of the walls as if thunderbolts had been hurled from the sky. Stones scattered and dust filled the horizon. All along the trenches before the walls, the Janissary battalions stood in solemn silence. Their armor gleamed under the spring sun. Between the dug trenches, workers carried baskets of earth to build barricades, while others loaded the cannons with gunpowder. And in the heart of the Golden Horn, the Ottoman ships lined up in silence, watching from afar, while behind the walls, smoke from fires rose into the air. And every night, Mehmed the Conqueror stood before a map illuminated by torches, drawing the path of the final assault in red lines. And as the ground shook beneath the bombardment, Emperor Constantine XV remained standing on the walls, directing the defenders and refusing to retreat. The city was on the verge of collapse. And on the 29th of May, at dawn, the trumpets sounded, the cries of Allahu Akbar rose, and waves of Janissaries surged like a flood toward the breach in the walls. Waves of steel clashed with fire, screams rang out, and the banners of the crescent mingled with those of the cross. And when the Ottoman flag was raised above the gate of St. Romanus, silence fell over the city. An era had ended, and a new one had begun. When the roar of the cannon subsided and the call to prayer rose for the first time above the walls of Constantinople, a solemn silence prevailed throughout the devastated city. The streets were covered with dust and stones, the doors of houses were half destroyed, and people watched anxiously from behind broken windows. Mehmed the Conqueror entered the city riding his black horse with calm steps, wearing his red cloak, his armor still gleaming from the battle. His entry was not that of an arrogant conqueror, but of a leader who knew that he was facing a new chapter in the history of an entire empire. The Sultan headed straight to Hagia Sophia, where the residents and soldiers had gathered. He dismounted his horse at the church door and bowed to touch the ground in gratitude to God, then declared that it would become a grand mosque for Muslims. At the same time, the conqueror ordered the protection of civilians, property, and the safety of Christians, and he returned their churches to them, demonstrating the policy of tolerance that distinguished his reign. Thus, Constantinople became Istanbul, the capital of the Ottoman Empire. A new era began, one that brought together minarets and Byzantine domes in a single tableau immortalized by history.